The Transcultural collaboration program began with the question of taste, of sugar, but very quickly it unfolded into something much larger, a question of how histories are absorbed into the body. I come into this as an interdisciplinary artist working with indigenous cosmologies, through performance, material, and embodied research. As someone from the Philippines, an archipelago shaped by water and located within the Pacific Ring of Fire, I have always understood the body in relation to unstable ground, volcanoes, oceans, and shifting terrains. These are not just landscapes to me, they are forces. They shape how I think about movement, time, and relation. In the online sessions in Zurich, we encountered sugar not simply as sweetness, but as a force. Through Sydney Mint's sweetness and power, we began to understand how sugar shaped colonization, labor, and global desire, how it reorganized time, disciplined bodies, and created systems that continue to structure how we live today. What seemed small revealed itself as vast. At the same time, we were asked to listen. In the sound workshop Hello Goodbye by Dimitri Dupero, we worked with fleeting encounters. Strangers moved through a woods, humming. They met, spoke in different languages, Filipino, Japanese, Spanish, Dutch, and then continued on their separate paths. There was no translation, no resolution, only presence. This experience shifted communication. Meaning did not emerge through clarity, but through atmosphere, through vibration, through the act of sharing space without needing to fully understand one another. It was a form of alignment, temporary and stable, but real. This sense of movement, of passing, of crossing, continued in our second project, Sugar Factory Crossing. We used snakes and ladders as a base because it already contains a familiar logic, sudden rises, unexpected falls, and a path shaped by forces beyond one's control. But we shifted its moral framework. The ladders were no longer rewards. The snakes were not punishments. Instead, they revealed systems of labor, inequality, and constraint. The factory became not just a site, but a condition, a structure that organizes bodies, time, and movement. As players moved through the game, what felt like play began to expose tension between agency and limitation, between progress and setback. Movement was never neutral. And yet it was only when I arrived in Yogyakarta that something began to shift more deeply. It was there that the concept of jiwa emerged. In Yogyakarta, cosmology is embedded in space, in ritual, in daily life. The cosmological axis, linking Mount Merapi, the Sultan's Palace, and the Southern Sea, organizes relationships between the human, the natural, and the spiritual. This resonated deeply with me. Coming from an archipelagic condition where land is always in relation to water, and where volcanoes are both creators and destroyers, I recognize cosmology not as something fixed, but as something volatile, alive, and constantly negotiating balance. I encountered it through movement, through visiting art collectives, studios, museums, and communities, where conversations around farming, land, and community revealed another way of understanding time. Not as speed of productivity, but as cycles, care, and interdependence. I encountered it again when I revisited my former school to reconnect with Wayang Kulit. Returning to it was not just technical. It was a reintroduction to a way of thinking where shadows, bodies, and stories exist across layers of reality, where performance becomes a space that holds the visible and the invisible together. And then, in a conversation, the word jiwa surfaced. Jiwa, as consciousness, spirit, or inner life, but also as something relational, something that connects body, land, memory, and cosmos. It was not something to define, but something to sense. From that moment, jiwa became a way to understand everything I had been moving through, not as separate projects, but as interconnected movements. This is where Conscious Enough was born. We imagine it as fictional wellness space, but also a critical one. It draws from multiple cosmologies, Diwa, Tamashi, Kush, Zulu, not to unify them, but to hold them together in tension. Within the space, visitors encounter fragments, improvised stations, gestures, materials drawn from agricultural life, ritual, and everyday practices. The body becomes both landscape and instrument, but Conscious Enough does not offer resolution. It does not promise healing, clarity, or optimization. Instead, it questions these very desires. What does it mean to seek alignment in a time where systems constantly demand productivity and coherence? Where does the jiwa reside when cosmologies become symbolic rather than lived? Can alignment be something we practice collectively rather than achieve individually? In this case, jiwa is not stabilized. It is encountered briefly, through participation, through disorientation, through shared experience. To be conscious enough is not to arrive at mastery. It is to dwell in sufficiency, to recognize that awareness, even if partial, unstable, or fleeting, is already a form of alignment. Looking back, this transcultural collaboration was not about producing fixed outcomes. It was about crossings between disciplines, between cultures, between systems of thought, from sugar to sound, from games to cosmology, from structure to spirit. And within these crossings, something continues to move, not a conclusion, but a rhythm, not certainty, but relation. Jiwa perhaps is not something we hold on to, but something that passes through us, like water, like heat beneath the earth, briefly aligning before it moves again. And maybe that is enough.